In the year 2025, humanity had reached heights that once seemed impossible. Earth was no longer just a small blue dot in the vastness of space. It had become a beacon of strength and innovation. Humans had colonized moons, built cities among the stars, and developed technology so advanced it made their ancestors' wildest dreams look like child's play. But with great power came great fear from others not far away. In the heart of the galaxy sat the Galactic Council, a group of powerful alien races who ruled over much of known space. They kept order, or at least, they claimed to. In truth, they controlled weaker species, taking what they wanted and crushing anyone who dared challenge them. For years, Earth had walked a careful line, avoiding conflict while quietly growing stronger. The Council watched this rise with growing unease. Humanity's independence, creativity, and refusal to bow to anyone made them dangerous. And now, the Council decided, Earth needed to be dealt with. It began on a quiet Wednesday morning. The people of Earth were going about their usual routines, working, studying, exploring new worlds. Suddenly, alarms blared across every human colony and outpost. A massive fleet of ships appeared near the edge of Sol System. These ships were sleek, black, and terrifyingly silent. On their hulls glowed the emblem of the Galactic Council. This wasn't a diplomatic visit. It was an invasion. At first, there was panic. Ships poured out of hyperspace, surrounding Earth's defenses. Communications crackled to life as the Council's representative spoke, his voice cold and emotionless. "You have been deemed a threat to galactic stability," he announced. "Surrender unconditionally, or face annihilation." Earth's leaders scrambled to respond. Diplomats tried to negotiate, scientists worked overtime to bolster shields and weapons, and soldiers prepared for battle. But everyone knew peace talks wouldn't work. The Council didn't care about fairness or reason. They only cared about control. Still, hope flickered in the hearts of many when word spread about Earth's secret weapon. Deep within a fortified base, hidden on the dark side of the moon, a figure stirred. Her name was Commander Serafina Voss, but most simply called her the Reaper. She was not like other humans. Born through a combination of genetic engineering, cybernetic enhancements, and rigorous training, she was designed for one purpose: to protect Earth at all costs. Standing 6 feet tall, her crimson armor gleamed under artificial lights as she stepped into the command center. Her piercing green eyes scanned the room, absorbing every detail without saying a word. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm but carried an edge of steel. "What's the situation?" she asked. A holographic display lit up before her, showing the positions of the Council's fleet. Thousands of ships loomed menacingly, their weapons trained on Earth. Among them were 10 smaller vessels marked with special insignias. These belonged to the Elite Hunters, a group of legendary warriors feared throughout the galaxy. Each member represented a different alien race, each more deadly than the last. Their mission was simple: eliminate threats quickly and efficiently. No one survived encounters with the Elite Hunters. Serafina studied the map for a moment, then turned to her second-in-command, Captain Marcus Hawley. "How long until they breach our outer defenses?" she asked. 48 hours, maybe less if they push hard," Marcus replied grimly. "We can hold them off for a while, but we're outnumbered and outgunned." Serafina nodded slowly. "Then we'll need to change the rules of engagement." Without waiting for further discussion, she strode toward the hangar bay where her personal warship, Eclipse, awaited. Sleek and deadly, the ship was equipped with experimental weapon systems and cloaking technology far beyond anything the Council possessed. As she boarded, her team loaded supplies and ammunition, knowing full well the odds stacked against her. Before stepping onto the bridge, Serafina paused. Images flashed through her mind, memories of battles fought, lives lost, sacrifices made. She clenched her fists, pushing those thoughts aside. There was no room for doubt now. Earth depended on her dot. As Eclipse launched from the moonbase, Serafina activated the comm system. Her message went out to every human settlement, every soldier, every civilian listening. "This is Commander Serafina Voss," she said, her voice steady and clear. "The Council has declared war on us, but let me make something very clear. We are not afraid. We will not surrender. I am heading into enemy territory to deal with their so-called elite hunters personally. Trust me, I'll handle it." With that, Eclipse vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind stunned faces and renewed determination. Across Earth and its colonies, people whispered her name. Some prayed for her success. Others marveled at her bravery. One thing was certain. Commander Serafina Voss had gone to hunt the hunters, and she would stop at nothing to protect her home. Hours later, Serafina arrived at her destination, Saturn's rings, a perfect ambush point. Here, amidst glittering ice and swirling debris, she waited patiently. Her target? Kael'tharian, the leader of the elite hunters. Known for his towering insectoid frame and devastating psychic powers, he was both feared and respected. If anyone could inspire fear into the hearts of his enemies, it was him. But Serafina wasn't afraid. Using stolen quantum hacking tools, she infiltrated the Hunter fleet's communication network, isolating Kael'tharian from his comrades. Then, she struck. EMP blasts disabled his escort ships, leaving him exposed. When he attempted to use his telepathy to crush her mind, she activated a neural dampener in her suit, rendering his powers useless. The battle that followed was brutal. Inside Kael'tharian's flagship, Serafina moved like a shadow, dodging plasma bolts and slicing through guards with ease. Finally, she confronted him directly. Despite his size and strength, she outmatched him at every turn, exploiting weaknesses in his exoskeleton until she delivered the killing blow, a monomolecular blade through his thorax. Before retreating, she recorded the scene and broadcast it live to the remaining hunters. With Kael'tharian's corpse sprawled behind her, she delivered a chilling message. "You came to hunt us. Now you're prey." And with that, the game changed. The elite hunters realized too late that they weren't dealing with ordinary humans. They were facing something far worse, Earth's greatest weapon. The death of Kael'tharian sent shockwaves through the galaxy. For centuries, the elite hunters had been untouchable, a symbol of the Galactic Council's absolute power. They were legends, warriors whose names inspired fear in even the bravest of species. But now, one of them lay dead, killed by a single human. The message broadcast by Commander Serafina Voss was clear and chilling. Earth wasn't going to roll over and die. Instead, it would fight back, and it would win out as news of Kael'tharian's demise spread. Panic rippled through the ranks of the remaining 9 elite hunters. Each of them had their own strengths, their own fearsome abilities, but none of them had ever faced an opponent like Serafina. She wasn't just skilled. She was relentless. And she wasn't afraid to take risks that others wouldn't dare attempt. Back aboard her warship Eclipse, Serafina reviewed the data from her encounter with Kael'tharian. Her suit systems analyzed every move, every attack, and every counterattack. Though she had emerged victorious, she knew she couldn't afford to grow complacent. The other hunters would adapt. They would come for her, faster and harder than before. She had to stay 2 steps ahead at all times. Her next target was already chosen. Zyraxis, the shapeshifter. Known for his ability to transform into any form, human, alien, even inanimate objects, he was a master of deception. His tactics relied on confusion and unpredictability, making him nearly impossible to track or fight directly. But Serafina had studied him carefully. Every hunter had a weakness, no matter how well hidden, and she intended to find Zyraxis's. Using advanced scanners, Seraphina tracked Xyraxis's movements. He was hiding near Venus, using its thick atmosphere as cover while he plotted his next move. She set a course for the planet, her mind focused and sharp. As Eclipse approached, she activated its cloaking device, ensuring that Xyraxis wouldn't detect her until it was too late. When she arrived, the scene was eerily calm. Thick clouds swirled around her ship, obscuring visibility. Sensors picked up faint traces of energy signatures, but nothing concrete. Xyraxis was here, somewhere, watching and waiting. Seraphina didn't waste time searching blindly. Instead, she deployed a series of drones equipped with thermal imaging and bioscanners. These devices swept the area, feeding real-time data back to her cockpit. It didn't take long for the drones to locate their target. Hidden within the dense cloud layer was a small, unassuming asteroid. At first glance, it appeared harmless. But Seraphina noticed something odd about its surface. It shimmered slightly, as if reflecting light differently than natural rock should. That was when she realized the asteroid wasn't real. It was Xyraxis, disguised perfectly to blend into his surroundings. Seraphina smiled grimly. Shapeshifters were clever, but they weren't invincible. Their transformations required immense energy, especially when maintaining complex forms for extended periods. If she could disrupt that process, she could force Xyraxis out of hiding. Activating a rarely used weapon system on Eclipse, she launched liquid nitrogen projectiles toward the fake asteroid. The supercooled gas froze everything it touched, causing temperatures to plummet instantly. Within seconds, cracks began forming across the asteroid's surface. Then, with a loud crack, the disguise shattered, revealing Xyraxis beneath. Caught off guard, the shapeshifter tried to shift again, morphing into a sleek fighter jet in an attempt to escape. But Seraphina was ready. She fired another volley of liquid nitrogen, freezing the air around him and locking him in place mid-transformation. Trapped between forms, Xyraxis screamed in agony as his body struggled to cope with the sudden drop in temperature. Without hesitation, Seraphina piloted Eclipse closer, aiming her ship's main cannon directly at him. "You're done," she said coldly, her voice devoid of emotion. A single shot tore through the frozen shell of Xyraxis's half-formed body, ending his life in an instant. But Seraphina didn't stop there. Knowing that the other hunters would be monitoring communications, she recorded the entire battle and transmitted it across the galaxy. Images of Xyraxis's defeat played on repeat, accompanied by her same chilling message: "You came to hunt us. Now you're prey." The impact of her actions was immediate. Across the galaxy, oppressed planets cheered openly at the sight of one of the Council's greatest enforcers being defeated. Meanwhile, the remaining elite hunters grew increasingly desperate. They convened an emergency meeting via secure channels, debating their next move. Some argued for retreat, claiming that humanity was too dangerous to face head-on. Others demanded vengeance, insisting that they crush Earth once and for all. In the end, they decided on a new strategy: divide and conquer. Rather than attacking Seraphina as a group, they would split up, striking from multiple directions simultaneously. Surely, they reasoned, she couldn't handle all of them at once. They underestimated her. Over the next few days, Seraphina continued her relentless assault. Her next target was Lyri, a telekinetic sorceress capable of bending reality itself. Lyri specialized in illusions, creating false images and scenarios to disorient her enemies. She believed herself untouchable, convinced that her powers made her immune to conventional attacks. Lyri chose Europa, one of Jupiter's icy moons, as her base of operations. The frozen landscape provided ample material for her illusions, allowing her to manipulate the environment with ease. When Seraphina arrived, she found herself surrounded by bizarre, shifting mirages, towering ice spires collapsing into dust, rivers of liquid nitrogen flowing uphill. and ghostly figures stalking her every step. For a moment, even Seraphina felt a flicker of doubt. The illusions were convincing, designed to overwhelm her senses and break her focus. But she reminded herself of one crucial fact: illusions only worked if you believed in them. Taking a deep breath, she closed her eyes and relied solely on her suit's sensors. The false images disappeared, replaced by raw data streams showing Lyria's true location. With her target pinpointed, Seraphina deployed anti-gravity mines scattered across the battlefield. These devices disrupted gravitational fields, interfering with Lyria's telekinetic abilities. As the sorceress struggled to maintain control, Seraphina advanced steadily, closing the distance between them. When Lyria finally realized what was happening, it was too late. One of the mines exploded near her, sending her sprawling to the ground. Before she could recover, Seraphina was upon her, delivering a swift, decisive blow that ended the fight. Another hunter fell, and another message went out to the galaxy. Earth was winning, despite her victories. However, Seraphina wasn't invincible. Each battle took its toll, both physically and mentally. Her armor bore scorch marks and dents from countless clashes. Her body ached from injuries sustained during combat. And though she never showed it outwardly, the weight of her mission pressed heavily on her shoulders. She dreamed of quiet nights under Earth's skies, free from war and bloodshed. Yet, she pushed those thoughts aside, knowing there was still work to be done. Her third target was Thalner, a hulking brute armed with plasma cannons integrated directly into his cybernetic arms. Unlike the others, Thalner relied on sheer strength and firepower to dominate his opponents. He was arrogant, believing himself unstoppable. When he learned of Seraphine's exploits, he scoffed, dismissing her as nothing more than a lucky soldier. Determined to prove himself, he positioned his forces near Jupiter's massive storm system, intending to use the planet's intense gravity and atmospheric pressure to his advantage. Seraphina knew better than to engage him directly. Instead, she lured him deeper into Jupiter's atmosphere, using feints and decoys to draw him further away from his support fleet. As the pressure increased, Thalner's heavy armor began to buckle under the strain. His movements slowed, his reflexes dulled. Sensing her opportunity, Seraphina struck, launching a barrage of kinetic missiles that slammed into his weakened defenses. Thalner roared in fury, firing wildly with his plasma cannons. But Seraphina danced around his attacks, moving with precision honed through years of training. Finally, with a powerful kick, she disabled one of his cannons, leaving him vulnerable. A final shot from Eclipse sealed his fate, reducing him to a smoldering wreck dot by the time she withdrew. 3 of the elite hunters were dead. The galaxy watched in awe as Seraphina dismantled the Council's enforcers one by one. Fear turned to respect, hatred to admiration. Even those who had once doubted humanity's strength now saw Earth as a force to be reckoned with. Yet, Seraphina knew the fight was far from over. 6 hunters remained, each more dangerous than the last. But she also knew something else. She was stronger than they were. Stronger, smarter, and more determined. No matter what challenges lay ahead, she would face them head-on for Earth. For humanity, and for the future, she refused to let slip away. With 3 of the elite hunters defeated, Commander Seraphina Voss had become a legend. Across the galaxy, people whispered her name in awe and fear. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council's grip on power seemed shaky. Their supposedly invincible enforcers were falling one by one, undone by a single human warrior. But despite her victories, Seraphina knew the hardest battles still lay ahead. The remaining 6 elite hunters were no ordinary opponents. Each was a master of their craft, with abilities far beyond anything humanity had ever faced. They were cunning, ruthless, and desperate to reclaim their shattered reputation. And now, they had devised a new strategy, They would attack her all at once. The plan came into motion near Neptune, where Seraphina had set up a temporary base to repair Eclipse after her last battle. As she worked alongside her engineering team, alarms blared throughout the ship. Scanners detected multiple incoming signals, hunter vessels converging on her position from every direction. It was a trap, carefully orchestrated to overwhelm her. Seraphina didn't panic. She had expected this moment would come sooner or later. With calm efficiency, she ordered her crew to prepare for combat. Eclipse's engines roared to life as it launched into space, leaving behind the safety of its hidden outpost. Outside, the battlefield stretched endlessly, filled with swirling debris and icy clouds. The stage was set for what would become the most intense fight of her life. The first wave of attackers came from above a swarm of drones controlled by Xandros, the tactician. Known for his ability to coordinate large-scale assaults, Xandros relied on overwhelming numbers rather than brute force. His drones buzzed through the void like angry insects, firing energy beams and missiles in unison. Alone against such odds, any normal pilot would have been doomed. But Seraphina wasn't normal. Using Eclipse's advanced maneuvering systems, she darted between the drones, evading their attacks with precision. Her countermeasures kicked in, deploying electromagnetic pulses that disabled entire clusters of drones at a time. Still, there were too many to destroy outright. Realizing she couldn't win this part of the fight conventionally, Seraphina activated a failsafe built into her ship, a gravity well generator. The device created a localized distortion in space-time, pulling the drones toward it like moths to a flame. Unable to resist the immense gravitational pull, the drones collided with each other in chaotic spirals, reducing themselves to scrap metal. When the dust settled, only silence remained. Xandros' fleet was decimated, but he himself was nowhere to be seen. He had retreated, biding his time for another chance to strike. Before Seraphina could catch her breath, a second threat emerged from behind. Nixara, the stealth expert, phased out of thin air directly behind Eclipse. Cloaked in shimmering energy fields, she moved silently, invisible to most sensors. In her hand, she held a disruptor pistol capable of disabling even the most advanced technology with a single shot. Nixara fired without warning, aiming directly at Eclipse's engine core. The blast struck true, sending sparks flying across the ship's interior. Alarms screamed as critical systems began to fail. Seraphina gritted her teeth, fighting to keep control of her damaged vessel. She couldn't see Nixara, but she didn't need to. Her suit's neural interface allowed her to predict movements based on subtle shifts in energy patterns, activating Eclipse's emergency thrusters. Seraphina spun the ship around just in time to avoid another shot. Then, using a combination of heat-seeking missiles and concussive charges, she flooded the area with overlapping explosions. The shockwaves disrupted Nixara's cloaking field, forcing her to materialize mid-air. Before the stealth expert could react, Seraphina unleashed a barrage of plasma turrets, pinning her down. What followed was a brutal close-quarters duel. Nixara tried to phase again, but Seraphina anticipated her moves, striking with calculated precision. Every punch, every kick, every block was executed with flawless timing. Finally, with a swift uppercut, Seraphina knocked the disruptor pistol from Nixara's hand. A single shot from her wrist-mounted blaster ended the fight, leaving Nixara sprawled motionless among the wreckage. But victory came at a cost. Eclipse was heavily damaged, its shields barely holding together. Seraphina knew she couldn't stay in the open for long. She needed to retreat and regroup, but the final attacker was already upon her. Valric, the cyborg warrior, emerged from the shadows of Neptune's rings. Unlike the others, Valric was not fully organic. His body was fused with ancient AI technology, granting him enhanced strength, speed, and intelligence. His mechanical limbs gleamed under the dim light of distant stars as he advanced toward Eclipse, weapons blazing. Seraphina tried to evade, but Valric's targeting systems were unmatched. Every move she made was countered before she could complete it. Explosions rocked the ship as Valric's plasma cannons tore through its hull. Inside, sparks flew as circuits overloaded and panels exploded. Seraphina fought to maintain control, her hands gripping the controls tightly. Realizing brute force wouldn't work, she turned to strategy instead. Hacking into Valric's systems remotely, she planted a virus designed to corrupt his AI core. At first, it seemed to have no effect. Valric continued his relentless assault, driving Eclipse closer and closer to destruction. But then, something changed. Valric hesitated, his movements faltering slightly as the virus began to take hold. Seizing the opportunity, Seraphina launched a kamikaze drone loaded with high-yield explosives. The drone streaked toward Valric, dodging his defenses until it slammed into his chest. The resulting explosion engulfed him in flames, melting his cybernetic components and shattering his armor. When the smoke cleared, Valric lay broken, his once mighty frame reduced to a charred husk. Exhausted but alive, Seraphina limped back to her lunar base aboard Eclipse. The ship groaned under the strain of its injuries, its systems flickering ominously. She patched up the worst of the damage herself, her hands steady despite her fatigue. As she worked, images of the battle replayed in her mind, the swarms of drones, the invisible assassin, the unstoppable cyborg. She had won, but the cost had been high. Word of her latest triumph spread quickly. Across Earth and its colonies, celebrations erupted as people learned of the fall of 3 more elite hunters. Even the Galactic Council grew uneasy, their confidence shaken by Seraphine's relentless victories. Yet, deep down, Seraphina felt no joy. Each battle left her more battered, both physically and emotionally. Memories of those she had lost haunted her dreams, reminders of the sacrifices made to bring her to this point. Still, she refused to give up. 3 hunters remained, and she knew they would stop at nothing to kill her. But she also knew something else. She was stronger than they were. Stronger, smarter, and more determined. No matter how hard they tried, she would never let them win. As repairs on Eclipse neared completion, Seraphina prepared for the next phase of her mission. She studied the profiles of the remaining hunters, analyzing their strengths and weaknesses. She tested new weapon systems, refined her strategies, and pushed her body to its limits in training simulations. When the time came, she would be ready. For now, though, she allowed herself a brief moment of rest. Sitting alone in the cockpit of her ship, she gazed out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the last 3 hunters waited, plotting their revenge. But Seraphina wasn't afraid. She had faced impossible odds before, and she had always emerged victorious. Earth depended on her. Humanity depended on her. And she would not fail them. Commander Seraphina Voss had fought her way through 7 of the Galactic Council's elite hunters. Each victory brought humanity closer to survival, but each battle also left its mark on her. Her crimson armor was scarred, her body ached from countless injuries, and her mind carried the weight of lives lost along the way. Yet, despite everything, she remained resolute. There were only 3 hunters left now, Andros, Nixara, and Valric, and though they were dangerous, Seraphina knew she couldn't face them all at once. She needed a new strategy. The first step was understanding her enemies better. Xandros, the master tactician, relied on overwhelming numbers and precise coordination. Nixara, the stealth expert, could phase through solid matter and strike without warning. And Valric, the cyborg warrior, combined brute strength with advanced AI technology. Together, they formed a nearly unstoppable team. But Seraphina had learned something important during her battles. Even the strongest alliances could crumble under pressure. Her plan was simple yet risky. Instead of engaging them directly, she would turn them against each other. Using hacked communications and planted misinformation, she sowed distrust among the remaining hunters. She sent fake messages suggesting that Xandros planned to betray Nyxara and Valric, while also hinting that Nyxara intended to eliminate her comrades after their mission was complete. It was a gamble, but if it worked, it would weaken them before she ever faced them in combat. Meanwhile, Seraphina prepared herself for the inevitable showdown. Back at her lunar base, she upgraded Eclipse's systems, installing experimental weapons and reinforcing its shields. She trained relentlessly, pushing her body to its limits and sharpening her reflexes. Every spare moment was spent studying the hunter's tactics, searching for any weakness she could exploit. By the time she was ready, her resolve burned brighter than ever. The final confrontation took place above Earth itself. The planet below was battered but defiant, its cities scarred by orbital bombardments, yet still standing strong. The sky shimmered with energy as the last three hunters descended toward the surface, determined to end Seraphina once and for all. Seraphina watched their approach from the cockpit of Eclipse. Her heart pounded in her chest, but her hands were steady on the controls. She had chosen this battleground carefully. Earth's atmosphere provided unpredictable weather patterns, making it harder for her enemies to coordinate their attacks. Additionally, the ruins of nearby cities offered plenty of cover for ambushes and traps. As expected, Xandros led the charge. His fleet of drones filled the air, buzzing like angry hornets as they launched coordinated assaults on Eclipse. Seraphina dodged and weaved between the attackers, using evasive maneuvers to avoid taking too much damage. At the same time, she deployed decoy drones equipped with holographic projectors, creating false images of her ship to confuse the enemy. While Xandros focused on the decoys, Nyxara struck from behind. Phasing out of thin air, she appeared directly beside Eclipse, aiming her disruptor pistol at the ship's engines. Seraphina reacted instantly, firing a burst of plasma turrets that forced Nyxara to retreat. The stealth expert vanished again, reappearing moments later in a different location. This cat-and-mouse game continued for several minutes, with neither side gaining the upper hand. Finally, Valric joined the fray. His massive frame loomed over the battlefield, his mechanical limbs gleaming ominously in the sunlight. He unleashed a barrage of plasma cannons, forcing Seraphina to take evasive action. The sheer power of his attack shook Eclipse to its core, threatening to tear the ship apart. But Seraphina didn't falter. She activated Eclipse's gravity well generator, creating a localized distortion that pulled Valric off balance. Caught in the gravitational pull, he stumbled, giving Seraphina an opening to strike. She fired a series of homing missiles that slammed into his armor, weakening his defenses. Seeing their comrade in trouble, Xandros and Nyxara turned their attention to Seraphina. For a brief moment, they worked together, combining their strengths to overwhelm her. Drones swarmed around Eclipse, while Nyxara phased in and out of existence, striking from unexpected angles. Valric recovered quickly, charging forward with terrifying speed. It seemed hopeless. Seraphine's ship was surrounded, her options dwindling by the second. But then, her plan began to take effect. The seeds of doubt she had planted earlier bore fruit, as Xandros accused Nyxara of holding back during the fight. "You're letting her escape," he shouted over their shared comms channel. "Are you working with her?" Nyxara denied the accusation, but her tone betrayed her growing unease. "Don't be foolish," she snapped. "We need to finish this." Valric, meanwhile, grew increasingly frustrated. His AI-enhanced mind processed the situation logically, recognizing that their lack of coordination was costing them valuable time. "Enough," he growled. "If you two can't work together, I'll handle this myself." With that, chaos erupted. Xandros redirected his drones to attack Nyxara, believing her to be a traitor. Nexara retaliated by phasing into his flagship and disabling its systems. Valric, furious at their infighting, charged at both of them, unleashing devastating blasts of energy. Seraphina seized the opportunity. While the hunters were distracted, she launched a counterattack. First, she targeted Valric, knowing his damaged armor made him vulnerable. A well-placed Imp blast disabled his eye systems, leaving him disoriented and sluggish. Before he could recover, she fired a monomolecular blade from Eclipse's main cannon, slicing through his chestplate and ending his life. Next, she turned her attention to Xandros. His drone fleet was already depleted from fighting Nexara, making him an easier target. Seraphina used Eclipse's cloaking device to sneak up behind him, delivering a crippling blow to his flagship's engines. As the ship spiraled out of control, Xandros attempted to flee, but Seraphina intercepted him with a volley of missiles. The explosion consumed his vessel, silencing him forever. Only Nexara remained. Alone and desperate, she tried one last gambit, phasing directly onto Eclipse's bridge. Her disruptor pistol aimed squarely at Seraphine's head. "It's over," Nexara hissed, her voice trembling with rage and exhaustion. For a moment, the two women stared at each other, locked in a deadly standoff. Then, Seraphina smiled a cold, calculating smile. "Not quite," she said softly. Before Nexara could react, Seraphina triggered a failsafe built into her suit. A pulse wave surged outward, disrupting Nexara's cloaking field and rendering her visible. In the split second it took for Nexara to realize what had happened, Seraphina lunged forward, grabbing her wrist and twisting it until the disruptor pistol clattered to the floor. A swift kick to the stomach sent Nexara sprawling backward, and a single shot from Seraphine's blaster ended the fight. When the dust settled, only silence remained. The skies above Earth were clear once more, free of the threat that had loomed so ominously just moments ago. Seraphina stood alone on the bridge of Eclipse, her chest rising and falling with labored breaths. She looked down at the bodies of her fallen enemies, feeling no satisfaction, only relief. Word of her victory spread quickly. Across the galaxy, oppressed planets cheered openly, inspired by Earth's defiance. Even the Galactic Council fell silent, unable to respond to the unprecedented defeat of their elite hunters. Humanity had proven itself stronger than anyone had anticipated. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted in every corner of the planet. People flooded the streets, waving flags and chanting Seraphine's name. She became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity could prevail. Yet, for Seraphina, there was little joy in the aftermath. She returned to her lunar base, weary but unbroken. Images of the battles replayed in her mind, the sacrifices made, the lives lost. She knew the fight wasn't truly over. The Council might regroup, sending new forces to crush Earth, but for now, she allowed herself a moment of rest. Standing on the edge of the moon's surface, she gazed out at the stars. Somewhere out there, new threats loomed. But Seraphina wasn't afraid. She had faced the worst the galaxy could throw at her, and she had won. Whatever came next, she would be ready. Earth depended on her. Humanity depended on her. And she would never let them down. The galaxy was silent. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council had nothing to say. Their elite hunters, 10 of the most feared warriors in existence, were gone, defeated by a single human. Commander Seraphina Voss had done what no one thought possible. She had stood against overwhelming odds and emerged victorious. But while humanity celebrated, Seraphina knew that peace was not guaranteed. The Council still existed, and they would not take this humiliation lightly. Back on Earth, the mood was electric. Streets were filled with cheering crowds, waving flags and chanting her name. News outlets broadcast images of Seraphine's battles endlessly, turning her into a symbol of hope and defiance. People spoke of her as if she were more than human, as if she were a force of nature sent to protect them from tyranny. To many, she was already a legend, but for Serafina, there was little time to rest. She returned to her lunar base, where engineers worked tirelessly to repair Eclipse. The ship bore the scars of countless battles, its hull patched together with makeshift materials. Inside, systems flickered and groaned, struggling to stay operational after so much strain. Yet, despite its condition, Eclipse remained ready for action. Just like Serafina herself thought as repairs continued, she spent hours reviewing data from her encounters with the elite hunters. Every move, every decision, every outcome was analyzed in meticulous detail. She wasn't just preparing for future battles. She was learning. Each victory had taught her something new about strategy, resilience, and the limits of her own abilities. And though she had triumphed over the hunters, she knew she couldn't afford to become complacent. The Council would retaliate. It was only a matter of time. Her instincts proved correct sooner than expected. Days after her final battle, a transmission arrived from the Galactic Council. It was brief, cold, and devoid of emotion. Earth has made its point. We will withdraw our forces for now. But know this, your defiance will not be forgotten. Serafina read the message several times, her expression unreadable. On the surface, it seemed like a concession, a sign that the Council had backed down. But she saw through their words. This wasn't an admission of defeat. It was a warning. They hadn't given up. They were regrouping. Whatever came next, it would be worse. Still, the message brought a temporary reprieve. Earth had won a rare moment of calm, a chance to rebuild and strengthen itself before the storm returned. Across the planet, leaders scrambled to fortify defenses, develop new technologies, and prepare for the inevitable conflict ahead. Meanwhile, Serafina became the face of humanity's resistance. Her image appeared on posters, statues, and even currency. Children played games pretending to be her, mimicking her moves and imagining themselves as heroes. Yet, behind closed doors, Serafina wrestled with doubts. She had always believed in her mission in protecting Earth, but the cost of her victories weighed heavily on her. Images of fallen comrades haunted her dreams. Memories of battles fought and lives lost replayed in her mind without mercy. She wondered if she had truly saved humanity or merely delayed its destruction. One evening, as she stood alone in the cockpit of Eclipse, Captain Marcus Hawley approached her. He had been her second in command since the beginning, a loyal friend who understood the burden she carried. "You did good, Commander," he said softly. "Better than anyone could have hoped." Serafina didn't respond immediately. She stared out at the stars, her eyes reflecting the endless expanse of space. Finally, she spoke. "Did I?" she asked quietly. "We stopped the hunters, but at what cost? How many died because of me? How many more will die when the Council comes back?" Marcus sighed, leaning against the doorway. "You can't think like that," he said. "This isn't about you or me. It's about Earth, about humanity. You gave us a fighting chance, a chance to stand on our own 2 feet instead of bowing to those monsters. That's worth something." His words struck a chord within her. She nodded slowly, though her expression remained somber. "Maybe," she admitted, "but it doesn't make it easier." Weeks passed, and life began to return to normal, or as close to normal as it could under the shadow of the Council. Earth's colonies flourished, bolstered by newfound confidence. Ships traveled between planets freely, carrying supplies, knowledge, and hope. Scientists worked around the clock to unlock new discoveries, pushing humanity's technological boundaries further than ever before. Even among the stars, word of Earth's defiance spread like wildfire, inspiring oppressed species to rise up against their oppressors. For Serafina, these changes were bittersweet. She took pride in what humanity had achieved, but she also felt detached. The world moved forward, yet she remained rooted in the past, haunted by the battles she had fought and the sacrifices she had made. She trained harder than ever, pushing her body to its limits in preparation for the next fight. She studied tactics, tested weapons, and refined her strategies. When sleep finally claimed her, it brought restless dreams filled with fire and blood. Then, one day, a new threat emerged. Scouts stationed near the edge of Sol System reported unusual activity, an armada unlike anything seen before. Hundreds of ships, each larger than a city, drifted ominously toward Earth. At their center floated a massive vessel, bristling with weapons and glowing with ominous energy. This wasn't a fleet of enforcers or mercenaries. This was the full might of the Galactic Council. Panic swept across Earth as news of the approaching fleet reached the public. Leaders called for emergency meetings, strategists debated evacuation plans, and soldiers prepared for war. But amidst the chaos, one voice rose above the rest. Serafina addressed the people directly, her tone calm but firm. "We faced impossible odds before," she said, "and we've won. The Council thinks they can scare us into submission. They're wrong. If they want a fight, we'll give them one. But this time, we won't do it alone." Her message sparked a wave of unity. Colonies rallied to Earth's defense, sending ships, resources, and volunteers. Factories operated non-stop, producing weapons and armor. Engineers designed traps and defenses, turning Earth's atmosphere into a deadly maze for any invader. Even civilians joined the effort, offering whatever skills they possessed to help the cause. When the Council's fleet entered orbit, they found Earth waiting. Thousands of ships formed a defensive line, their crews ready to die for their home. On the ground, millions of soldiers stood armed and determined. Above them all hovered Eclipse, its engines roaring as Serafina prepared to lead the charge. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Explosions lit up the sky as ships clashed in brutal dogfights. Energy beams crisscrossed the void, tearing through hulls and scattering debris. Planet-side, artillery rained fire upon invading forces, turning landing zones into killing fields. Through it all, Serafina moved like a storm, striking fear into the hearts of her enemies, using Eclipse's advanced systems. She targeted the Council's flagship, aiming to decapitate their command structure. Wave after wave of defenders tried to stop her, but none succeeded. Her ship danced between attacks, evading missiles and lasers with impossible precision. When she finally reached the flagship, she unleashed everything she had: missiles, plasma cannons, gravity wells, all aimed at its core. The explosion was cataclysmic. The flagship shattered into pieces, sending shockwaves rippling through the fleet. Without leadership, the remaining ships faltered, retreating in disarray. Earth had won not just a battle, but a war. As the dust settled, silence fell over the battlefield. Serafina stepped onto the bridge of Eclipse, her crimson armor battered but unbroken. She looked out at the stars, feeling a mix of relief and sorrow. The fight was over, but the scars would remain for her, for Earth, for everyone who had lived through it. Her final message to the galaxy was simple: Earth is not your plaything. Come again, and we will reduce you to ash. Across the stars, the message resonated. Oppressed planets cheered openly, inspired by Earth's courage. The Council, humiliated and weakened, retreated into the shadows, their grip on the galaxy shattered. Humanity had proven itself stronger than anyone had imagined, and at the heart of it all stood Serafina Voss, the woman who had hunted the hunters and changed the course of history. For now, there was peace. But Serafina knew better than to trust it completely. She returned to her duties, watching the stars with unwavering vigilance. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them head-on for Earth, for humanity, and for the future she refused to let slip away.